Welcome to the Why on Earth Community Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron William Perry, and today we're just outside Durango, Colorado, with the founder of James Ranch Grill, Cynthia James Stewart. Cynthia, it's so wonderful to be visiting with you here.
I'm so glad you got to join us in my little space here in my restaurant.
It's an amazing regenerative restaurant, and you're nourishing an entire community with this operation here that we're going to have the opportunity to talk about extensively.
Well, I'm excited to share this story.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yeah,
Yep.
a real journey, huh?
Definitely.
Well, and so my sweetheart Caress is off camera here, and we had such a delightful dinner here last night that you hosted with amazing, delicious food. So we got to get that right out front for everybody. They ought to come and try it for themselves.
Absolutely. We would love to nourish you, each and every one of you. It's my mission. It's our goal. That's why we do what we do. So come on over and have the most healthy burger you've ever had.
Maybe the most delicious burger you've ever had, too. And fries. That's right.
Regenerative, organic, certified.
After 28 years, Cynthia James Stewart, the last of the 5 James children to return home, decided it was time to rejoin her family in Durango. She, her husband Robert, and daughter Sonia moved home to the ranch in 2009. Cynthia had been living in big cities, including New York, Houston, and San Francisco, since she left Durango after high school, and with her degree from the Fashion Institute of Technology and Robert's career in the mortgage industry, they weren't sure what business they were going to start in order to live on the ranch. Within their first year in Durango, they learned how the James family members were implementing regenerative and sustainable practices in the production of their food products. They were impressed with not only how extremely hard it was to farm and ranch this way, but the outcome of their products were delicious. Cynthia wanted to share this goodness with everyone and decided the best way to do so was open a restaurant, even though she had never worked in one. Robert went along for the ride, and we met him last night. He's wonderful. In the summer of 2011, they opened a food cart on the property called the Harvest Grill and Greens at James Ranch. And in September of 2019, just in time for COVID, we'll talk about that, they moved into a brick and mortar building and renamed the restaurant the James Ranch Grill. Their concept is to only source ingredients that are non-toxic and chemical-free, being produced locally by farmers and ranchers that are caring for the soil, resulting in nutrient-dense and flavorful food. We're going to talk a lot about that. They feel so fortunate to be able to serve such delicious food to their guests, knowing that the secret is simply fresh, regenerative, local ingredients produced with love and dedication. And look, I've been in the food and restaurant world for years, decades, and can very quickly, almost immediately, get a sense for the nature of the heart and soul behind the food being served and the place in which people gather to eat. And I'll tell you what, this is one of the most deeply authentic and profoundly nourishing restaurants I've ever been to.
Wow, that's saying a lot. I'm sure you've been to a lot of restaurants.
It's true, I have. A whole lot.
Oh, good. Well, that's the outcome. We want people, and they don't really know why it tastes so good, but they leave energized without a gut bomb. Like when you go out for a burger and fries, normally you leave with a gut bomb and your body's like, oh, I'm so tired. Where your body knows exactly what to do with those ingredients because they're what nature's intending for us to eat. Grass-fed only beef, that's what cows are supposed to eat, only grass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And local regenerative ingredients, tomatoes that come from farmers that are growing it in soil that has nutrients instead of just this mass-produced, orange tomato that comes off of a truck that's sprayed with a whatever that's called that makes it red, and it gives you that sense, and then it just doesn't even taste like a tomato. People don't even know what a tomato tastes like.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to offer that to our community and supporting the farmers and the ranchers that are just really putting so much effort into it. And I just want to say a shout out, first of all, for anyone that grows food and produces and raises animals for consumption, because it is so hard.
Yeah.
And it's a choice. Like, they're doing that as a choice for their living.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, they choose to go through all that. Yeah. And they choose to have those hours, and they choose that to feed us. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a honorable and so overlooked profession. Mm-hmm. And as a restaurant owner, and I'll get into this in my story, when I started the food cart, again, never working in a restaurant before, I just did it, and I just did what felt right, and I made that commitment. I'm like, I am only going to give the community, serve the community what I would serve my family. Mm-hmm. And so in doing that, I had to build relationships, because my oldest sister Jen, and if it's okay, I'll segue into that.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
So my mom and dad, I mean, picture this. A 21 and a 22-year-old just got married, just got out of college, grew up in Redlands, California, or Pasadena, California, went to Redlands University, no idea what they were doing. My dad was in line to be the heir of a multi-million-dollar manufacturing company that my grandfather started, and he was the only son. And my dad had it in his soul, maybe too many John Wayne movies, I'm not sure. He wanted to be a cowboy. He just wanted to be on the land, and he wanted to get he didn't want to raise his kids in the materiality of California, and he said no to his dad's empire, and he just said, and he convinced my beautiful mom that she was going to do it with him, and they headed east and found this ranch and just got cattle and just started it.
Wow.
21 and 22-year-old, right?
Wow.
I mean, can you even picture
Unbelievable.
kids today doing that?
Right.
But the passion and the intention was to be in nature and to do this, you know, to be the cowboy. And people that make that choice to be the cowboy are people that have a really beautiful, incredible intention. And so he got his herd of cattle. I won't go into how all that happened, but we're still here today, so it's a happy ending. And then he had a herd of kids. So I'm one of 5 children. And, you know, the more hands, the better to run the ranch. Yep. And we all had our farm experience, ranch experience. I won't go into those details, but I will tell you, as a child, it felt like we were tortured, right? Because other kids got to go, you know, watch television all day, and they, you know, all these other perks, and we would come home. We had a half an hour of television a day. That was it. Yeah. While we had a snack, and then out you go, right? You had animals to take care for. If you didn't wake up in time to feed your animals, you didn't get breakfast either. I mean, that was just how it was, right? So when we were 18, we were out of here. Yeah. All of us gone, never coming back. You know, none of us had any interest in agriculture. So we all did our own thing, and then we got married, and then all of a sudden, those memories of torture turned into, wow, we kind of got a good work ethic from that, and wow, we were responsible because of that, and all these. So as you got older, we got wiser, and we saw the benefit of being on this beautiful property and having animals and everything that entailed. So one by one, we started to come back. And there was a caveat. My parents were thrilled. My dad was about ready to turn all this land into a golf course because he was tired and he couldn't do it anymore. Sure, right. And as soon as we heard that, we're like, no! And then, but we all came back. But the caveat was that if you come home, you can use the land, you can use the resources, but family does not work for family. Because they knew they raised 5 chiefs and no Indians. And they knew it wouldn't be peaceful. So, you know, they had their cattle business, but none of us could work for them. We had to come up with our own thing.
Very entrepreneurial.
Very entrepreneurial. And that's my dad. So we all had to just changed a chapter in our lives. Like my oldest sister Jen, she and her husband, she was a interior designer, and he is a CEO of big, huge hotels and stuff. And so, you know, what were they going to do? So she decided she wanted to be an organic farmer. So she started the farm. And then my next oldest sister, Julie, and her husband, she has her degree in art. She's incredibly talented. So naturally, she got, 350 laying hens, because why not? And so they started the egg business side and took over the tree business that my mom had started. And then I'm the middle child, so I'm going to skip me for a second, because I was the last to come home. And then my brother Dan, who has his degree in fishery, who was living in Seattle, convinced his beautiful wife to come home and make cheese.
Wow.
And have a dairy farm, because he loves cheese. And so they sold their house in Seattle, and they traveled the world and learned how to make a raw milk artisan cheese from grass-fed only cows. And that's a beautiful story. Hopefully someday you can tell everybody.
Yep.
And then my youngest brother, Justin, he's the youngest of 5, so he was completely spoiled. And that's just how it is with, the youngest, because your mom's tired. And so she's like, okay, we'll do whatever you want. But anyway, he didn't really have a lot to do with the farm and stuff as much as we did, probably, because my mom had a big garden when she had lots of hands, and by the time he was here. So he went off into the Navy, and he came back, and he's here today. He's the only one that doesn't have a enterprise on the ranch, but he's in Durango. So we're all back, right? And so now I'm the last to return. I left Durango, went to New York City, was in the fashion industry for a while, and traveled big cities and did all of that. And then it was just time to come home to raise our daughter. And because everybody else was home. And my husband's parents lived in Pregosa.
Oh, wow.
And
very
so
close by.
It was like, okay, we have to go back. And I just didn't know what we were going to do. And it was so amazed. I was just amazed. Kind of going back to that story of how I was like, wow, you choose to work this hard? Wow. Like, and the food was incredible. Like my sister's carrots from her garden, you just eat it and it snaps juice in your face, because the soil's so good. And my parents' beef was amazing. I mean, it tasted like beef. And my brother's cheese was award-winning. And my sister's eggs had that golden yolk from being on the pasture, and eating grass and grasshoppers. And I was just, and I love food, first and foremost. And I'm just like, we should open a restaurant. We should have that. And my husband was like, okay. So that's where that started. And I just, through that time frame, after making that commitment to the food wagon, at that time when we had the food wagon, and just working with local people, that's when I learned how hard it was. Because I'd get those phone calls, and the farmers would be like, hey, I don't have your salad mix. A deer got into in my garden last night and ate everything. That's their livelihood, right? Or Mother Nature, right? Mother Nature's a tough partner, right? Because you don't know her moves, and drought, and drought years, so then they would get grasshoppers that would eat their crops. And I mean, the hailstorms would just come down and plummet, just pulverize their lettuce and their tomatoes. And I was just walking through this with all these people, and I was like, wow, I just have to honor them with this restaurant, and just let, this restaurant honors those people, because they deserve that. Especially the small farmers. They're not using shortcuts. They're not using fertilizers. They're not using pesticides and herbicides that make it easier. They're doing it with nature. And it's hard. And I just think, being a restaurant owner, that is our privilege and our right. If we can have that, have food be made for us to be able to share, is just such an honor. And so that's how I look at this restaurant, as just a way to honor those people, because they work so hard to do what they do, and they have a choice not to. And aren't we lucky that they do?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So there I go.
How beautiful. Wow, how amazing. I wanted to ask, can you take us back when your parents came here. When was that, and how did the evolution of the cattle ranching get into the holistic management, the regenerative methodologies that you and your family are all employing today?
So that was 1961 is when my dad bought part of the land. He continued to increase the land, and it was not at that time it just wasn't fashionable back then.
Right.
He fed them a little bit of grain, but he was more into the breeding side of it than he was into the production side of it for like selling the cattle for meat.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, he was so young that he didn't really know what he wanted. But also what was great about that is he didn't have indoctrination of a dogma that he had to follow that would lead him into just doing it the old-fashioned way. So he was very receptive to learning new things. And it was my brother-in-law, John Ott's introduction to holistic management through the Savory Institute.
Amazing, yes.
That he said, Dave, come with me and we're going to go learn about this holistic management process. And it was, I don't even know the year, honestly. But it was, obviously my sister was married, so it was probably maybe 30 years ago of that time that they met Alan Savory, went to a holistic management conference, learned about rotational grazing, but not only that, learned about holistic management, which is making decisions based on the whole, instead of my dad having to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
Because that person, that's the patriarch for, that's the old history way that you have to know what to do. And he loved the way that it was a decision-making process with the people that were involved and effect, and how that was going to affect this person and that person and the whole. So that's what they did. They came back from this and they created a holistic goal with the family members that were here. And then, started the rotational grazing process. And then that's when my dad realized, he's like, I'm not a cowboy anymore, I'm a grass farmer. Yep. Because he had to learn how to grow enough good grass and work with nature and to know grass so that he could feed his cattle only grass instead of supplementing. Yeah. And so, so he's proud today to be a grass farmer, actually. Yeah. And he's still a cowboy, but he's still a city guy too. He's like all of them together.
He's a renaissance. He's a renaissance.
He is
person.
Totally.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Well, in the soil piece and the holistic management piece, not only are you and your family producing this incredible food for the community and stewarding this land in such a beautiful way, you're also a hub, an educational hub that is helping more and more folks awaken to the possibilities of holistic management and regenerative stewardship. And I want to give a shout out to Mandy McGill, who introduced us and with whom you've collaborated for some time now, and who took on a project with you to put up some beautiful educational signage around the restaurant and the farm here, the ranch. Yeah. There's such a beautiful way in which not only are you feeding folks bellies and bodies, but you're feeding minds and hearts as well when people come here for a burger. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you feel that. That's the goal. Yeah. Yeah. Mandy is has been an integral part of our ability to communicate what we do here. It's kind of like when you're in a profession, you're in it. Yeah. And you don't realize what you're doing, you just do it. Yeah. And you don't see the like if I talk to you and what you do and you were to tell me everything that's involved in it, I'm like, wow, how do you do that? And so when you're in it, you don't really get that other people are interested. And so it was important that we got the message out, because one of the things when I came back, I really clearly remember in one of our family meetings, because we have quarterly meetings as a family, we go through this total delegated meeting process so that it's
it's unpersonal, and it's listens to everybody, and so it's a true way to have a family business and still love each other, and taking personality out of it. And so it was in that meeting that I remembered clearly in our holistic goal was to bring people to their food source. And so that they could learn about it instead of, because my family members were going to 2 different farmers markets, one in Durango, one in Telluride. It's a lot of work. It's a whole day wasted both times. Like you are not in production because you're hauling all your stuff. You go into the farmer's market, you're there all day, then you're hauling all back again and you're tired. And then Telluride's a 2-hour drive up, 2-hour drive back. And so their goal was to stop that, to create a market and at the time the grill wasn't even it was just a thought in my head. But a market that people would come here and then see and experience their food source. And so these panels that Mandy created, that we have kind of like a national park and our little self-guided tour, help people come here and learn what we're doing and why it's important. And that they're, by eating with us, they're voting with their dollar. That this is important and we're supporting what you're doing. And so I love the fact that you noticed how important that was, because educating is waking. It's just waking people up. They don't know. I mean, because all we know is the industrial vision of what the food production is. And so it's really a privilege to do that.
It's so wonderful. And I want to encourage everybody to make their way to Durango and come to the James Ranch Grill. You will have a memory for life and an experience that won't be soon forgotten. And I want to point out, folks can find more information about what you and everyone in the family are doing here at jamesranch.net. And last night I chatted with Mandy about figuring a way to get the educational panels out digitally. So we're going to try to figure out if there's a way to link or somehow share that with folks that way, of course, if that sounds good to you, so that they can see this incredible artwork and this way of visual storytelling that truly informs folks to very complex topics. We're talking like soil ecology is complex, very complex.
Totally.
And it does such a beautiful way of getting folks attuned to what's going on our planet and with our soil, upon which, of course, we all depend, and without which, of course, we wouldn't be here. And that piece, that depth of connection comes through your being and what you're doing here in such a powerful way. And I'd love to ask you, how would you share with our audience your perspective on what's happening in industrial food, which virtually all of us encounter regularly one way or another, and how that is so markedly different from what's happening here, and what that means for us nourishing our bodies, our minds, our neurobiochemical realities, while also stewarding the soil, the water, the wildlife, the environment in which we're situated right now.
That was a long question.
Yeah, that was a long one.
So I've spent the majority of my life in the cities. So I am not the family members that are doing the hard work. I'm the one that gets to eat it and share it. But in this process of making the decision to only source from local farmers and regenerative thinking people, a lot of that comes from the fact that it's my responsibility as a restaurant, I feel, as a restaurant owner, because if we don't support our local farmers that are caring for the soil and stewarding the soil, because I didn't know anything about soil before. But what I do know now, and I can simplify it because I'm pretty simple in this way, is that the soil, if it's not healthy, it doesn't absorb water, and it doesn't absorb carbon, and it doesn't create nutrients. The microorganisms are dead. So there's a difference. This is what I got to learn. There's dirt, and then there's soil.
Yeah.
And so I learned the importance of soil. And the people that are growing and have ruminant animals that are grazing on that land, that have animal impact on that land, they are creating soil.
Yeah.
And people that are farmers that are manipulating the dirt with fertilizers, because it doesn't retain water, so they have huge sprinkler systems and just using all this water that's unnecessary, because if you have healthy soil, it retains it. But their surface, so they're overusing water, they're putting on fertilizers because they don't have soil, they have dirt. But then they have to do that to make things grow, right? But then people are eating empty food.
Yeah.
There's no nutrients in it because there's no soil, it's just dirt. And so that's kind of what I see. And as a restaurant owner, I can't imagine feeding my people, my guests, empty food. I can't imagine feeding them, because you can go to a Michelin star restaurant that gets all their food from Cisco. No blame, no shame there. Just that's the system right now, right?
Yep.
And they dress it up, right?
Yeah.
Those chefs, their job is to take the same ingredients that the restaurant 2 doors down is getting and make it specialer, more special, with techniques and fancy flavors and stuff like that they create.
Yeah.
So when I opened the food wagon, I never even started cooking until I met my husband at 35. It's like, I don't have a chef degree. I don't have any of that. So I'm just like salt and pepper, because if it's got flavor,
Right.
you don't have to do all that, right?
Right. Don't have to
And
dress
so
it up.
I don't have to dress it up, right? I came up with a few sauces, but other than that, it's just like, if you have really good nutrient-dense food,
Yeah.
it comes with flavor.
Right.
You don't have
Right.
to make it have flavor.
Yeah.
And so that's what's fun about, when you're dealing with industrial as opposed to local, your food, you can see the nutrient density almost.
Yeah.
You smell it.
Yeah.
When you cut into that tomato,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
smell tomato.
Yeah.
And it's just, I can just go off on, I don't want to go off on the industrial, because it's a system that was put in place with intentions that I think in the beginning were pure. And now we're realizing that if we continue to have that system,
Yeah.
we're not going to have soil. And when you don't have soil, you don't have anything else. You don't have insects. You don't have birds. You don't have, we have to have all those things to live as humans. And so to me, it's deep. It's deep. It's deeper than just let's go get a burger. It's about doing the right thing as a restaurant to support the people that are supporting the soil and that are caring for the soil. And because the soil's our future. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. And if Mandy was here, she'd quote this right off the top of her head. But it's talking about the country that has the healthiest soil is the richest country.
Right.
I don't remember.
Well, and I believe
You know
that
that
it
quote?
might have been FDR riffing on that. Also says a nation that destroys its soil destroys
Well,
itself.
there you go. Thank God for people that have memories.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that I might
No,
be
that is the
mistaken. I'll
one.
have to go back and
That is-
check.
that's the one. That's the one. That's totally the one. Yep. Say it again.
Yeah, a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a quote in the book I wrote called Why on Earth. I think it's in there. And it might also be in our soil stewardship handbook.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty
should
sure.
be.
Pretty sure. It should be. If not, we'll have to go back and edit.
Okay.
Well, and I got to give a shout out to a dear friend and mentor, Brooke Levan. Brooke and his wife, Rose. at sustainable settings in Carbondale, Colorado, not too far from here in the scheme of things. And of course, for years, they also are ranching and farming in the regenerative, holistic way, with for them also practicing biodynamics is part of their journey.
Big importance, yeah.
And the big market for them is Aspen. And there are chefs in Aspen who have awakened to the connection between flavor and nutrient density.
Oh.
And there are chefs in Aspen who will only source from sustainable settings because of the culinary experience that their guests have as a result. And Brooke and Rose, of course, are also educating so many folks, and just have to give them a shout out. And I'll take this opportunity just to mention a few other episodes that we've done that are with folks working on very similar issues that I think will help some of our audience, connect some dots and maybe take deeper dives in certain directions if they'd like. And this includes Gabe Brown, one of the regenerative ranching experts from the upper Midwest, who wrote Dirt to Soil, and of course does a lot of policy work in DC and elsewhere advocating for better practices. Nicolette Hahn Nyman from the Nyman Beef Company, who wrote Defending Beef. We had her on. We had Elizabeth Whitlow on with the Regenerative Organic Alliance, and of course our friends Ueli Hütte and Jean-Michel Florin in Switzerland at the Goetheanum, the headquarters for biodynamic practices worldwide. And Jeff Moyer at the Rodale Institute, we had him on when he was CEO. And of course our friends Lauren Tucker and Finian Makepeace from Kiss the Ground. And there's a really interesting tie in there, and I want to be sure to ask you about the film that you're featured in so that we get our audience alerted to that. And have to mention that with Brooke Levan from Sustainable Settings, that's one of the very first episodes we ever did. And it was such a wonderful way that kind of unfolded without even intending to necessarily launch a podcast series. So shout out to lots of good folks working on these issues. And I love the notion that, one of the patterns we can all participate in is something you've been speaking to, which is asking our restaurants in our communities where they're sourcing their food. And of course, what that might lead us toward is having a whole lot more James ranches all over the place, right? In communities all over. This is what we need. This is what a resilient, abundant, and prosperous future looks like.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about the consumer demand lever in all of this, and why you think it's so important for folks to ask those questions when they're out at restaurants.
Well, I kind of felt like I've been a pioneer for a while with having that hardcore commitment to local. When I first started the Food Wagon and was introduced to different restaurant owners, my dad, makes sure do your homework and do your research and talk to other restaurant owners. And when I told them that what my concept was going to be, they were like, "You'll never make it." Because restaurants have a very small margin and farmers have a very small margin. And so you're not going to be able to make it. And I'm stubborn, and I said, "Oh yeah." And I did it, and I have done it, and we've been around for almost 15 years. And I say that not because it's easy. It's a lot harder to do it my way. It is. But it's sure as hell not as hard as farming. It's harder. It's harder than just having one list that you go down and you check off everything that you need and you submit it and you're done with your ordering. I have 25 different vendors I order from every single week. It takes me 2 hours to order. But it's the right thing to do. And it's possible. And I really just want to share that. And I have some little cards here that I put together because I want people to realize that it's up to the individual. That is your health. So when you go out and you spend money, your hard-earned money at a restaurant for that wonderful service and food, it is your right to ask, where do they source their food? Because if it's just industrial typical coming from large distributors. It's, for the lack of being overly dramatic, it's toxic. It has chemicals in it. It's nutrient lacking. It's not filling you up. It's filling you up, but it's not nourishing you. And there's no reason why they can't. Like there's no reason. It's just not the norm yet. But I will share this. This came out of the National Restaurant Association show that was in 2023. The CEO, Michelle Korsmo, cited that by 2030, sustainability will go mainstream, including packaging. No more styrofoam, all those things that hurt our planet. And she also stated that restaurants are now presented with an opportunity to not only please their guests, but contribute to preserving our planet. So that was in 2023. 2024, the National Restaurant Association found that the restaurant goers, especially millennials and Gen Z, indicated that they want more healthy, conscious, sustainable sourcing when dining out, right? And then, so it's not new anymore. I think that we're all realizing that we're connected and we want more, but we don't, I don't know, I think sometimes as a consumer, you don't feel like you have a choice, but we do. We have a choice by asking, is there anything on your menu that's sourced locally? That's the question, right? Is, you know, where do you source your beef? Where do you source your chicken? And we've all heard about the movies that are like Food Inc. and these movies that create conscious awareness about how food is produced, but then we kind of leave the theater and we're like, now what?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where do we go? What do we do? I don't want to eat that, but do I have a choice? And I feel like, yeah, you do. It's time to ask. You know, in 2024 or 2025, Toast is our POS system, and they did a study with 850 people in the restaurants that they have their systems, and it was a blind test, just a random customer, and they came out with some incredible results. They asked, the first thing is, the word that people are using now is sustainability, which is fine. Sustainability is a good start. It's a little bit deeper than organic, because organic has become a greenwashed word. It's been abused. The big companies are now organic, but they're industrial organic, so it's not as clean as local and all those other good things. So sustainable is better. Regenerative is the ultimate word that you want to hear. That is someone that, if they're regeneratively organic certified, which you talked about with the Alliance, they are using animal impact. They are actually using the practices that create soil, and that's nutrient dense. And so that's your ultimate goal. But let's just use the word sustainability, since that's what's out there right now. How they're describing it is, a sustainable restaurant strives to make conscious choices that prioritize long-term environmental and social well-being. Okay? Can we ask that of our restaurants?
Right.
Can we? Like, just taking that, I'm going to say it one more time. A sustainable restaurant strives to make conscious choices that prioritize long-term environmental and social well-being. So let's ask that of our restaurants, right?
Yep.
I mean, we can do that. We don't have to say, do you have to have everything on your menu like I do? I'm extreme, I know that. But start extreme, like start little, start something. You know, create a relationship with their local farmer and just commit to that farmer. I mean, I pay my farmers if they have a lost crop. I'm in it with them.
Wow,
I help them because that's not their fault, and they're committed to grow for me. You know, so let's do that, and let's ask our local, your favorite restaurant. Like, just say what's local, what's sustainable, what's regenerative. So the statistics were 73% of those 850 people that, once they were made aware of what a sustainable restaurant looks like. 73% of those respondents considered restaurants, they considered how the restaurants approach sustainability as an important factor when they decide where to eat. 73%.
That's considerable. That's
Right?
tremendous.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's showing that we're turning the Titanic.
Yes.
People are interested. We just don't have the time to take. We have to do it now. Like, we're running out of time. We really need to start doing these questions now. And
Yes.
I'm going to
and
give.
it's so hopeful that already 3 out of 4 of us
Yeah,
are there.
yeah.
That's incredible.
And what I also was encouraged is that 72% of those respondents were willing to pay more. People are valuing their health finally and their well-being.
Yep.
They're realizing that, pay my farmer now or pay my doctor later.
Right. Yep.
Right? And it's just, it's really encouraging to me that we're at a stage where we're waking up, and I'm so excited to be a restaurant that other restaurant owners can say, she did it. I can do this.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have to be transparent. I don't make the margins those other restaurants do. I don't. But I sleep well at night, and I know that I'm nourishing people, and I know that that experience that you were talking about when they come to our restaurant, they don't leave here with eating a meal. They leave here fulfilled.
Yes.
Mind, body, soul. And that's what if we can all strive for just a tiny bit of that. I mean, I'm so blessed to be on this gorgeous ranch and to have this space to do that. That's not everybody's option, but just giving them a tiny bit of that with educating them that, we have this relationship with a farmer, and you're eating salad greens that were picked this morning.
Yeah.
And that just makes that person leave that restaurant really happy.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, and I was struck last night when we joined you for dinner right out here behind us. A bunch of tables out on the lawn, and there were so many other families there enjoying not only the food, but this sense of community. It was palpable. It was like, all right, this is good. And I feel like this is something in our DNA. This is something that we're actually wired to experience.
Totally.
And it's real. It's palpable. It's beautiful. I can't wait for us to come back.
Yeah, I love that you felt that, because kind of what we were saying earlier about the dormant seed. I feel like we all have a dormant seed inside of us. And my friend Mandy, who we've referred to with Era, really, she brought this to my attention, so I don't want to take full credit, but I do want to emphasize that as a human species, we are going to waken to the fact that we are absolutely connected to nature.
Yeah.
And the health of nature absolutely affects the health of humanity.
Yeah.
And so we have to start doing things differently.
Yeah.
And we're hopefully that dormant seed inside of us that's kind of gotten buried with industrialism and materialism and all the other things that take priority and precedence in our life. That seed's gonna, we're coming into the age of the conditions of the world that's gonna waken that seed. Yeah. And we're just I'm just like a little place on the planet that's allowing people to experience that.
Absolutely. And I would love for our audience to hear a little more about this dormant seed reality, because this is really interesting in an ecological sense as it applies to the human analogy. So could you just tell us a little bit about how the dormant seeds work in nature and just how amazing that is?
Well, I'm not an expert on it. I just know that they find, like, there's places you can go on Google and find it, but there's like plants that just come out of nowhere. Like, they've never seen it before, but it's been in the soil. Yeah. And it required the perfect conditions of water or, location or whatever the nature's makeup is for that little seed to perform and to grow, it happened at that time in history. And it has to be that perfect condition for that dormant seed to be able to release its DNA. Nature's program for that little tiny seed was all the right, all the what do you call it? All the I's were dotted, and
Yes.
it was all the right conditions were checked off, and so they come out, and there's been multiple times when this has happened, or they haven't seen it for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
Amazing.
a whole field shows up one day. They're like, wow, where'd that come from?
Well, and I love how it invites us to consider each of us is on some level a dormant seed, or has inside of us a dormant seed, or maybe many dormant seeds.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing an invitation in this to wake up and to grow and blossom and share, what we're here to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's waking up to a connection to our source, and that we've always felt disconnected.
Yeah.
And Zach Bush speaks on this way better than I ever can, but Dr. Zach Bush, but that we're realizing that we're part of a really amazing, I don't know what you want to call it, but energy, or
I like fabric
of the world, or
yes, cosmogenetic fabric, whatever.
Yeah, I like that
we
too.
call it.
And we're a part of that.
Yeah.
And we're not separate. And I feel like we have that. Wow. I have a role to play here. I am not just an observer. I need to be a doer.
Yeah.
And that's that. And it's a calling that everybody will hear differently and at different times and different places. But that awakening's happening. And it's exciting. It's so necessary. And it's so, there's so much potential with that. And I feel like the dormant seed, once people do feel that, you're going to feel more confident to ask your local restaurant.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, wait a minute, I need to do this. Not just for me, but this is for like the bigger picture. And I think that's important, that people feel that confidence. And when they feel that seed awakening inside of them, which I hope maybe this podcast will help people
absolutely
feel that.
Yep.
Like it's there.
Yep.
And we have it, and it's just buried.
Yeah.
But you know what? All that other stuff is just dirt. And what our seed is planted in soil. Right?
Hear, hear. I love that. I say, aho, amen. Auskazeichnet. All kinds of things coming to mind. How beautiful, how wonderful. Well, I want to be sure to mention to folks, jamesranch.net. Come to Durango. When you're in Durango, come to 33846 Highway 550, James Ranch Grill. Open 6 days a week these days?
Right now.
Yeah.
Yep. Peak hours.
And experience this for yourself. And I want to, while I'm at it, mention a few other wonderful companies and organizations that we're also collaborating with who help make our podcast series possible. And this includes Climate First Bank, which is now nationwide in the United States. We're very excited about that.
Great.
Bluestone Life Insurance, with really beautiful custom life insurance products for your family that are also investing in socially and environmentally responsible vehicles. Earth Coast Productions, without whom we would not have a podcast series. The Brad and Lindsay Lidge Family Foundation, of course. Patagonia's Home Planet Fund. Our friends at Edaphic Solutions. The Josephine Porter Institute. and of course Chelsea Green Publishing. And with several of those incredible organizations, we put together a special regenerative gardening, simple gardening wisdom video course that you can check out at the website whyonearth.org if you'd like, along with our books and many other resources that we've got available for you there. And speaking of videos and video resources, I wanted to be sure to ask about the video to which we belong.
It's a documentary.
That you're in. It's available, we think, on Apple TV.
Yep.
And we'll see if we can find a link and include that in the show notes.
Perfect.
To help folks get to that. And we'll have the show notes links for some of these other podcast episodes that we mentioned as well. And of course, I have to give a shout out to our friend Dr. Elaine Ingham, who essentially pioneered the formal holistic soil science field for all of us, and has now had over 10,000 other scientists cite her work.
Wow, awesome.
She's incredible. Soil Food Web is her work there. And yay, so I think we've mentioned all of the friends and colleagues that we wanted to mention here. And I did want to say TOAST is POS, which means point of sale, which hundreds of thousands of restaurants are using all around the country and probably internationally, I'm not sure.
Yep.
And so for them to do these sorts of surveys and to query the general public the way they have is actually super meaningful, and I would say very exciting and hopeful that the numbers are what they are at this point.
Absolutely. It just validates.
Yeah.
To me, it validates that this is the path we're on and where we need to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone anymore.
Right. We're not alone.
We're not alone.
Yeah.
And we're all on this big planet ship together. And it's nice. It's nice that they did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the way you're also thinking about empowering each of us with this call to action for us to be inquiring with our restaurateur friends where they're sourcing their food. And I wanted to invite you to riff on that any further if you'd like. And I want to be sure also to ask you about farm runners and distributors, because this is near and dear to my heart.
Yes,
but
we haven't talked about that yet.
With respect to this call to action, this invitation, as you were saying that we each have a choice, it popped up for me and I wrote it down. We also each have a voice in all of this, right? And I think in some ways the invitation is to exercise the choice and the voice, just asking questions. We don't have to be confrontational or accusatory. We just inquire. It's actually kind of fun. I've done it a bunch.
Yeah. it just, if we don't ask and they don't know that we care.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. It's just like letting them know that you care about what you put in your body. And I think that's our choice, and that is our voice. Because if we don't voice it, nobody else is.
Yep.
I mean, I can't say nobody. There's a beautiful group of restaurants that are doing what I do. And I don't know to the degree that I do because I'm not out there, but I do know that there's plenty of, like you're referring to the chef in Aspen, you know, a lot of chefs are waking to the flavor. Dan Barber, you know, from Blue Hill, he's the pioneer, really, of introducing all this to the culinary world. And we're so blessed in Durango. We have an organization called Real Organic, started by Lindley from Adobe House Farms, Lindley Dixon. And, you know, they've been working with Dan Barber, but it's just, there's I think it's just taking that interest in that control of your own life. Like, I have a choice. I do have a voice, and I don't know. I love how you pointed out. It doesn't have to be like, well, what do you source locally? You know, it doesn't have to be snarky or accusatory. It's curious.
Yep.
And curiosity to, can you, have you, and then let's let that lead into our food runners, our farm runners. You know, so to get those goods from all these farmers, me personally, I have them deliver. I go to the farmer's market and pick it up from the farmer's market if that's where they are once a week. Or we have what are farm runners organizations like Taproot that are based in the San Luis Valley. So if I can't get it locally, these trucks bring it down. And they're picking up from all these farmers, and then they bring it to the restaurants and retail stations. Like my sister gets some from them as well for the market. And our fries, our French fries now. So for years we were using fingerling potatoes. And that was unique and fun, and it was a byproduct because I found out that the potato seed growers in the valley, in the San Luis Valley, would throw like thousands of pounds of the bigger ones that were beyond the seed size to the pigs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, that's a waste. So I'll just cut those up and make a French fry out of it. So we did that for 5 years.
Wow.
And it became like then they changed to just growing for us because we were getting more, we were growing. And so I think my last year with the fingerling potatoes, we bought 9 tons of potatoes.
Wow.
And so they ended up just growing potatoes you know what I mean? So it wasn't a byproduct anymore. So it was still a byproduct, but not the same, like what we were intending to do.
Yeah.
But in that process, I found out that I couldn't switch to a non-seed oil because my fingerling potatoes, the skins that were left on them would dye my oil.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'd have to change my oil every day.
Wow.
That's $189 a day for oil.
That's significant.
So I was on the hunt for a solution to that. Plus they were hand cut, like one potato at a time, huge labor. So anyway, business-wise, but I wanted to offer quality. I'm not going to go to, not to name bash, but I'm not going to go to a major distributor and get, pesticide potatoes that are formulated GMO just for fries, which is what most restaurants do. Yeah. So I was able to connect with Sarah Jones from Jones Organic Farm, and they are in the San Luis Valley, and they are growing this little potato called the yellow jelly, and we don't hand cut it this way, we just hand crank it. So it's still, we're still taking on the labor side, but they are regeneratively organic certified. That soil is soil. And that potato, you're eating a French fry, but it is healthy. Yeah. And it's got nutrient density in it, and it's in a cleaner, better oil. If you're going to have to fry something, make sure it's a good oil, right? Yeah. No canola oil, none of the yucky stuff. Yeah. And so I don't know why I got on this tangent, but just as
talking
far
about
as
the farm runners and the distribution networks.
So thank you. Yeah. So I don't have to go up there. They bring it down to me. So every week I get my delivery of potatoes. And so I'm able to have something regional. That's not local, but it's regional.
Pretty local.
It's 3 hours away. Yeah. And so without those farm runners, I would have to be doing that.
Right.
Right. And it's not sustainable for me and my restaurant. And then along with that, they're bringing other stuff down from other food growers up there that can grow things during different seasons. So we can stay seasonal, but we can still... But it's not necessarily right here, and so we're still supporting the food economy that's within our local area, and they're just crucial. They're crucial to making this actually work for more restaurants to succeed. The challenge is that they are a middleman, right? And so they need to get paid, right? And so you pay them just like you pay the other food distributors. And actually, what's interesting, I've learned because I've been on the sites to other large food distributors, I'm paying sometimes less money for my local farmers' items than would go through a major food distributor that's selling it organic. Yep. So industrial organic is more expensive than my local farmer. and through my farm runner, like Taproot. So it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we just have to, again, if there's a demand, then all these other systems are going to come to play, and they will work. If we, as the consumer, with our choice and voice, ask enough, that will, the reason to be on the road will be that much more lucrative for those farm runners, so they can survive.
That's right.
Excuse me. And then we're supporting the farmers in a bigger way.
How beautiful. Well, here for the farmers, the restaurateurs, and the regional and local distributors, a big shout out.
Yes,
of
thank
course.
you for them.
This is the Y on Earth Community Podcast, and I'm your host, Aaron William Perry, and just want to remind you today we're visiting with Cynthia James Stewart here at the James Ranch Grill in Durango, Colorado. And it is such a joy being here. We've had a beautiful raining morning. The sun's coming out. The birds are singing. The train whistles blowing off in the distance. It's like a setting for a novel or something. And you know, we're gonna, in just a few minutes, we're gonna have our behind the scenes chat, which we'll share with our ambassador network. And if you're interested in learning more about the growing global network of ambassadors we're collaborating with through the Y on Earth community, just go to yonearth.org and you'll find a page with information about getting involved with the ambassador network. And we have lots of additional resources available exclusively for our ambassadors. So there's a great additional way to enrich your own personal path of stewardship, sustainability, regeneration, health, and well-being. And before we sign off and transition to our little behind-the-scenes chat, I want to be sure to, first of all, thank you, Cynthia, for taking the time to visit with us today and share your story and your inspiration and your calls to action with us. And of course, thanks for the hospitality and the wonderful dinner we had last night. And I want to invite you, if there's anything else you'd like to say to our audience, any closing thoughts before we sign off, please, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll probably think about it after you turn the camera off, but I think I've shared it. I think it's more just understanding the big picture, you know, that we're all connected. And that our decisions that we make on a daily basis affect everyone. It's a ripple effect on every level. And so just being mindful of all the decisions we make, you know, buying things that have useless packaging. Like, do I really need to buy that? You know, my daughter likes those little chia packages, you know, that has a little plastic twist off thing. And I'm like, no. Because that's not going to biodegrade, and that's going to be left for, like, beyond your children's children. Like, no. You know, just little things like that, that we can all have that choice, and just being mindful, because we are all connected, and this planet is, it will live beyond us if we don't make different choices.
Well, thank you so much for visiting with us today,
Thank you
Cynthia.
for
It's been a real joy.
coming down and joining me. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Y on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability podcast series is hosted by Aaron William Perry, author, thought leader, and executive consultant. The podcast and video recordings are made possible by the generous support of people like you. To sign up as a daily, weekly, or monthly supporter, please visit yonearth.org/support. Support packages start at just $1 per month. The podcast series is also sponsored by several corporate and organization sponsors. You can get discounts on their products and services using the code YONEARTH, all one word with a Y. These sponsors are listed on the yonearth.org/support page. If you found this particular podcast episode especially insightful, informative, or inspiring, please pass it on and share it with a friend whom you think will also enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. And Thank you for being a part of the Y on Earth community.